Good evening and welcome to 16 by 9, The Bigger Picture. Hundreds, if not thousands, of women around the world are murdered by their families in the name of honor every year. But is this now becoming our problem too? And is this social savagery spreading from the Middle East to middle-class neighborhoods across this country? Well, tonight, 16 by 9 investigates some of these cases. And in London, England, this beautiful 15-year-old Tuile Gorin, seen here dancing at a cousin's wedding, was killed by the one man who was supposed to protect her, her own father. Tuile had fallen in love with a man from a different Islamic sect. She was tied up, force-fed coffee laced with crushed sleeping pills, and then later murdered. Her body was never found. And just a few weeks ago in Turkey, a 16-year-old girl known only as MM was buried alive in a 2-meter hole outside her home. Why? Her family was told she had been seen talking to a boy. After a family council meeting, she was bound and buried alive by her father and grandfather.
Premeditated fashion that this father, mother, and brother, cold-heartedly, chillingly, laid out a plan to murder these 3 teenage girls. And remember, one of them was just 13 years old, and murder the woman who they felt was perhaps persuading them behind the scenes, advocating for their freedom within the household. And they also thought that she would be a problem, so that's why they murdered her.
Fia, his wife Tuba Yaya, and son Hamed are accused of murdering the couple's 3 teenage daughters and his other wife in the polygamous family. Prosecutors contend it was sparked by his rage over his eldest daughter's plans to marry her boyfriend. During the 3-hour interrogation, Shafia showed little emotion even when the officer handed him pictures of his dead daughters and quoted Shafia from a wiretap telling his wife, "Even if they come back to life 100 times, I would do it again." Dan Halton, CBC News, Kingston.
This Canadian was strangled by her father because she refused to wear a headscarf. This Italian had her throat slit by her dad while she was held down by her uncles. This American was run over by her father in his Jeep Cherokee. These sisters were shot by their father in a New York taxi. This woman was shot by her brother in broad daylight. They may have defied the wishes of their parents or adopted Western ways or tried to leave Islam. So they were killed. Many were tortured first. The precise number of honor attacks worldwide is unknown because many are not reported or are reported as accidents or suicides. But a new report says 3,000 honor attacks were committed last year in Britain alone. Gina Khan has been a national spokeswoman in Britain against honor violence and Islamic radicalism. She left an abusive arranged marriage and had to move to a secret location because of threats.
You're at risk if you speak out. You can be attacked. I'm aware of that.
This young woman moved to Sweden from Iran a decade ago. The new life meant a new school and new friends. But her family, steeped in tradition, did not agree with her new lifestyle.
When my father learnt that I had Swedish friends, he told me not to spend time with them. I refused. Then he and my brothers started beating me severely, me, my sister and my mother, who defended me.
After her father threatened to kill her, the young woman ran away to a different city. Now Fatima, as she has decided to call herself, has been in hiding for several years. Fatima's story is an example of a so-called honor crime, when parents, mostly from traditional Muslim families, used violence against women to force them into arranged marriages or prohibit them from integrating into society. One such story rocked Sweden 7 years ago. The 26-year-old Turkish immigrant Fadime was intimidated by her family for dating a Swedish boyfriend. She ran away, but was found and shot by her father.
A Pakistani couple have been arrested after they used acid to burn the face and body of their 16-year-old daughter for talking to a boy. Unfortunately, she did not survive the injuries. She did die. What's incredible is almost 1,000 women lost their lives last year to so-called honor killings, and that's according to the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan.
A woman's life is worth far less than a man's sense of shame. The United Nations estimates that as many as 5,000 women are murdered in such honor killings each year. Tonight, you will see that this crime has come to America and we are just beginning to grapple with how to confront it.
Everyone was asleep. Detective Christian says Rashid prepared to strangle his daughter with a bungee cord he kept in his trunk.
He had taken a bungee cord out of the car, actually put it in his pocket so Sandy would not see the bungee cord.
Police say Sandy went to her bedroom above the garage. Her dad followed.
He strangled her, killed her. Then he'd gone down to the garage, burned the bungee cord, and then flushed it down the toilet.
Says he confessed to killing her later at the police station.
He told us that he had killed his daughter, that he did not want the family dishonored.
Canadian businessman is accused of murdering his daughters in what's being called a Muslim honor killing. Police charged Mohammed Shafi with first-degree murder after his 3 teenage daughters and another female relative died last month. Their bodies were found in a car at the bottom of a canal in Kingston, Ontario. Relatives say Mohammed believes that one of his daughters had dishonored him by having a romantic relationship with a man. An estimated 5,000 women die in honor killings each year around the world.
Unfortunately, that kind of story is not rare in the Muslim world. Now, one filmmaker is trying to raise awareness by telling the tragic story of an Iranian woman. Ephraim Graham has more.
Speak English.
I must talk fast. There are things in this village you do not know about. They cannot get away with this. These devils.
Zara is an Iranian woman who meets a French journalist, breaks her silence, and exposes a brutal tradition in her village. Her niece, Soraya, was stoned to death.
Why should I listen to you?
Hear my story first. You will know why you should listen.
The gripping story is the focus of the feature film, The Stoning of Soraya M., directed by Cyrus Narasith.
Iran, the victim is accused of a crime. Usually it's adultery or a sex-related crime for which stoning is the punishment, and it's usually women who are the victims.
In this film, the victim is Soraya. Her husband Ali wants to dump her and marry a 14-year-old, so he falsely accuses Soraya of cheating. The punishment, she's buried waist deep while the men in the village throw stones at her. And this is a true story, based on an international bestseller first published in 1994.
I've come to a private university to hear what the younger generation thinks. They're all aged between 21 and 23 from wealthier families. I asked the men how they would react if they discovered their wife had cheated on them.
If I knew that my wife has cheated me, I'll kill her, simply. Yes.
So is that the view that most people would have in Jordan?
99% in Jordan is like this. In Islam, if some girl not married and she had some sexual relationship, she can be punished, okay? But if she's married, Islam said that she had to be killed.
Usually men in our society, they choose from religion what they want. Okay, like marrying 4 women, you know, about killing their women. But they don't, I mean, look at them, they don't do anything that religion says. So they choose what they want.
What if someone accused you of doing something wrong? Do you think you could defend yourself if you were accused of some kind of wrongdoing?
I guess not. It's hard to defend yourself in this society.
We're back. Horrific treatment of women is a grim reality in places around the world, like the country of Pakistan, a U.S. ally. On Tuesday, a horrible incident took place that's getting surprisingly little attention, however. A pregnant woman was murdered on her way to a busy Pakistani courthouse where she was to take part in a fight with her family over a man she chose to marry. As the 25-year-old woman approached the main entrance of the courthouse, she was greeted by her father, her brothers, and other family members who tried to pull her away. When she resisted them, her own family stoned her to death in broad daylight as many others, including men, looked on. The woman was killed because of her choice not to accept a marriage arranged by her family, as is the custom in much of Pakistan. The woman's father told the police, "I killed my daughter as she had insulted all of our family by marrying a man without our consent, and I have no regret over it." Well, the worst part is this is hardly an isolated incident. According to the independent watchdog group, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, nearly 900 women were murdered in that country in these so-called honor killings in 2013 alone. That's just last year alone.
Down this dirt road and in this ditch in the poor province of Baluchistan, 5 young women were buried alive. An ambulance took away the exhumed bodies, the women's crime wanting to marry for love.
3 women wanted to get married of their own free will and contracted court marriages. 2 elderly women helped them. All 5 were caught, brutally injured and tortured, and then buried alive, and that's how they died.
What was even worse, 2 members of parliament actually defended the killings.
They stood up on the floor and they said that this is Baloch custom.
Do women in Pakistan have the ability to marry who they want?
No. In one word, I don't need to give you a treatise on this in answer. The short answer is no. Look what happened in Balochistan on the 14th of July, 2008. 2008.
Violence against women is sadly common across South Asia. Honor killings, attacks with acid, rape, and trafficking happen all too often. Are women second-class citizens in Pakistan?
Yes. I'm not even sure that we are considered citizens by the police, sections of the judiciary, the sections of the parliamentarian.
In Pakistan, 90% of women, wives, are beaten.
A young life snuffed out.
Banaz was a caring, loving young woman with the whole of her life in front of her. And that life has been brutally cut short by the very people that should have loved her and protected her.
A young Kurdish woman in London is the victim of a so-called honor killing. Coming up, the crime her family says she committed that led to her brutal death. Now, they're called honor killings, but there's nothing honorable about them. It's a term used to describe acts of violence committed against women for bringing perceived dishonor to the family. Young women can be marked for death for even simply falling in love with the wrong person. Paula Newton reports on one such story out of London.
In this cell phone video, the story just pours out of Banaz Mahmoud, and so does her panic and fear. As her boyfriend records it all, Banaz lays on a hospital bed, describing what she herself still couldn't believe. It was New Year's Eve 2005 in London, and Banaz's father, an Iraqi Kurd and devout Muslim, told her to grab her suitcase and go with him to her grandmother's. There, she was forced to drink alcohol to prep her for what was to come. She says, I finished the drink, I finished all of it, and then he got up, she says, and left the room. Banaz says when he came back, armed with surgical gloves, she was sure he would try to kill her. She ran from her grandmother's house, smashed a window, hysterical, as she called for help. She ended up in hospital that night, her boyfriend at her side. She told police the whole story. Her family wanted her dead. Official figures show as many as a dozen women a year in Britain are the victims of honor killings. But the figure could be much higher. Apparent suicides for young Asian women are 3 times the national average, and there's little explanation for that. Banaz's sister, Bakal, worries about being the family's next target. She now lives at a secret location and wears a full veil, convinced she must hide from her own family.
Indeed, this honor crime is horrific, but there are daily violences against women that are occurring, in fact, in the same community and many other communities, which are overlooked. And I think that this honor crime has to be viewed in that broader context.
Berlin's Charlottenburg district, December 2010. The next long night for someone who's been behind bars for more than 6 years. For murdering his own sister.
I was happy with myself. Because I finally acted on the decision I'd made a long time ago.
Ayhan Surucu shot his sister Hatun in the head 3 times. An honor killing, not least because she had a German boyfriend. Ayhan's older brother Mutlu is free. He allegedly obtained the murder weapon, and there's still an international arrest warrant out on him.
This young mother's only crime was being pursued by her husband's cousin. After 3 years being harassed, she complained to his family and they acted. They condemned her to death.
They told me, there is a gun in the house and we are going to kill you tonight. You have seen how we killed your sister-in-law. You will be killed in the same way. I have done nothing wrong. They did this to protect the man.
A rise in honour suicides. To avoid being punished, families are forcing women to kill themselves. Esra, not her real name, married at the age of 15. Her husband was unfaithful and beat her. When she asked for a divorce, her own family told her to commit suicide to clean their honour.